Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call to order the County Planning Commission for March 13th, 2023. If you'll please call the roll.
Yes. Members Borja,
Yes.
Rethel,
Here.
Corona Sabagnano,
Here.
Tatishi, and Wong.
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you. If you'll please make the announcements for this evening.
Yes, so in-person public comment, speakers will be required to complete and submit a speaker request form to clerk staff. The chairperson will invite each individual to the podium to make a verbal comment. To make a public comment by telephone on the day of the meeting, dial 916-875-2500 to make a verbal public comment. Follow the prompts for instructions. Refer to the agenda and listen to the live meeting to determine when is the best time to call to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item. Callers may be on hold for up to an extended period of time and should plan accordingly. When the chairperson opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. For a written comment, contact information is optional. Written communication is distributed, published, and filed in the record. Please feel free to send an email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.gov. Include meeting date and agenda item number or off-agenda item number. You can mail a comment to 700 H Street, Suite 2450, Sacramento, California, 95814, and include the meeting date and agenda item number or off-agenda item. The meeting will be live streamed, and members of the public may watch and listen by choosing an option. metro14live.saccounty.net/planning.html.
If you all please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. And we do have a little changes to the agenda tonight. We have received a request for continuation for item number 3 to the March 27th Planning Commission. Is that correct, Jessica? March 27th?
Yes, March 27th, please.
Perfect. So I'll go ahead and move to continue item number did you want to read it into the record first?
Yes. So item number 3 is a use permit, special development permit and design review located at 7599 Stockton Boulevard in the South Sacramento community. And the, environmental document is a mitigated negative declaration.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move item number 3 to be continued until March 27th.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Will you please call the roll?
Members Borja.
Yes.
Rethel.
Yes.
Corona Sabagnano.
Yes.
And Wong.
Yes.
And the motion carries with those members present.
Perfect. The only other change to the agenda that I'll announce before we get started was we are going to move item number 2 onto the contested portion of the agenda. So we'll go ahead now and call item number 1, which is on the non-contested portion of the agenda.
And item number 1 is for a time extension located 2,000 feet south of the intersection of Bradshaw Road and Florin Road in the Vineyard community. And the environmental document is an addendum to prior mitigated negative declaration.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jessica Brandt with Planning and Environmental Review. We are happy to provide a presentation on this if you would like. If you do not require a presentation, Emma Patton, the project manager, is here to answer any questions, and the applicant is present as well. Thank you.
Thank you. For item number 1 this evening, do we have any questions for staff or a request for a presentation? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to public comment.
And if you'll bear with me just a moment. And we do not have any public comments.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to deliberation.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second for staff recommendation. Will you please call the roll?
Okay, members Borja.
Yes.
Rethel.
Yes.
Corona Sabagnano.
Yes.
And Wong.
Yes.
And the motion does carry with those members present.
Thank you so much. Will you please call item number 2 this evening?
And for item number 2, we have a time extension located north of Calvine Road and west of Excelsior Road in the Vineyard community. And the environmental document is an addendum to prior environmental impact report.
Good evening, Ms. Patton.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. So again, Emma Patton, Associate Planner with Planning and Environmental Review, and this evening I will be presenting the Silver Springs Lot P time extension application for you. So the subject parcel is known as Lot P and is located north of Calavine Road and west of Excelsior Road in the Vineyard community. The parcel is also located within the Vineyard Springs Comprehensive Plan, and the subject site is vacant. On this exhibit, you can see that the site is zoned for agricultural residential 1. It is surrounded by rural residential uses to the north and south, and a mix of rural residential and denser single-family residential uses to the east, and the developed Silver Springs subdivision to the west. A bit of history for the Silver Springs Lot P site. In October 1991, the Silver Springs subdivision was approved. At that time, the subject site, Lot P, was included with the Silver Springs subdivision and was planned to include a vernal pool preserve. Subsequent to the approval of the subdivision map, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service issued a revised biological opinion for the Silver Springs project. The revisions consisted of a substitute property for the preservation of a different piece of property known as Excelsior 184. As mitigation for impacts to those vernal pools on the Silver Springs site. Following the revised biological opinion, the county received an application to subdivide Lot P, and ultimately in May of 2018, the board approved that Silver Springs Lot P subdivision. That Silver Springs Lot P subdivision was set to expire on October 21st, 2022. However, an application for a time extension was timely filed prior to the expiration of the map, making it eligible for a 6-year time extension. Approval of that 6-year time extension would result in a new expiration date of October 21st, 2028. Here you can see the subdivision of Lot P. The subdivision map would divide the 91.5 acre property into 48 single-family residential parcels, 1 wetland preserve parcel, 5 landscape parcels, 1 open space parcel, and 1 trail corridor parcel. On this exhibit, you can see the majority of the parcel, over 50 acres, remaining as a preserve, while the remainder of the parcel is subdivided into those 48 single-family residential lots. An addendum to the final environmental impact report was prepared for the Silver Springs Lot P subdivision time extension request. It is determined that the analysis included in the EIR remains adequate and complete for the current proposal of the time extension. The subdivision would also remain subject to the previously adopted mitigation monitoring and reporting program. The Vineyard CPAC met on October 13th of last year and recommended that the Planning Commission deny this request for a time extension, voting 3 yes, 0 no. Members indicated that they desired the entirety of Lot P to be maintained as a preserve and had concerns regarding the loss of wetlands and the mitigation of those wetlands. Members also indicated that they had concerns related to traffic. In response to both of those concerns, the application is conditioned to comply with conditions and mitigation measures related to wetland preservation and applicable roadway improvements, including frontage improvements on Calavine Road and Excelsior. The subdivision remains consistent with the general plan, community plan, and comprehensive plan policies. The subdivision remains consistent with applicable use standards and development standards. Deviations allowed through the previously approved special development permit would remain in effect with this time extension. The subdivision remains compatible with its community context, and the environmental document and mitigation measures remain adequate and appropriate for the subdivision as documented in the addendum. Based on this analysis, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission determine that the prior environmental impact report and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, together with the addendum prepared for this time extension, is adequate and complete, and that you approve the 6-year time extension for the Silver Springs Lot P subdivision, resulting in the new expiration date of October 21st, 2028. That concludes my comments on this application, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for staff this evening? Commissioner Bohr?
Just thank you for the presentation, Ms. Patton. I was just wondering that even before the conditions were addressed by both the staff and the applicant, during your presentation at the CPAC, were you able to at least advise some of the CPAC members that the approval or the success of the project would also mean that traffic, some of their traffic concerns would be addressed by the project itself, or did they not kind of see that point of view?
Yeah, during the CPAC meeting, we shared with the CPAC members that the project was conditioned to complete several roadway improvements, including off-site or on-site roadway improvements and their frontage improvements for Calavine and Excelsior Road.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That's all.
Can you walk us through the timeline? A lot of the extension requests we've gotten recently are up to 6 years, and this looks like a brand new full 6-year extension.
Yeah, so we had an update to our county code back in 2021, which now allows for a 6-year time extension. Previously, we only allowed for a 5-year time extension, and so this planning commission has seen several requests recently for 1-year time extensions, essentially to allow for that catch-up, to add that additional year that the county code now allows. This tentative subdivision map has yet to receive any discretionary time extensions, and so it is eligible for the full 6-year time extension, which is the applicant's request.
Got it. So the 2018 number was the approval, but the expiration is 2022.
Yes, so in March of 2018, the board approved the subdivision. It was approved for a 3-year time period, which originally expired on April 21st, 2021. The map was eligible for a statutory time extension under AB 1561, which extended the map to October 21st, 2022. And just before it expiring, the county did receive that application for the time extension. Because that was timely filed, it's eligible for that 6-year time extension under the Subdivision Map Act.
So the statutory 1 year doesn't come off of that 6-year.
No,
Okay.
it's in addition to it.
Understood. Thank you. Commissioner Corona-Savignano?
Yeah. Was this heard by the CPAC previously, before this past year?
So the time extension request was heard by the CPAC on October 13th, 2022. The subdivision itself, when it was first being considered in 2018, also went to the CPAC at that time.
And what was the comments there, or the vote, or recommendation?
I don't have the vote with me at the top of my mind. We do have the applicant in attendance who, as I understand, participated in the process back in 2018 and may be able to answer those questions. There was a site, from my research, there were similar comments presented during the prior CPAC meeting in 2018, or leading up to that 2018 hearing, and the October 2022 meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wong?
So as I understand it, some of the concern revolves around the fact that instead of Lot P being maintained as a wetland, instead the Excelsior 184 has been deemed a preservation in perpetuity. Can you explain a little bit, like, sort of what the implications of that are and the differences between, okay, we're no longer having this wetland, but instead we're doing this preserved site over here?
So in addition to the Excelsior 184 site, there will be a portion of the site remaining as a wetland preserve, about that 50 some odd acre portion of that property. And that portion would, as conditioned, is deed restricted to be a preserve. So prior to the recordation of that final map, they will need to deed restrict that property to be a preserve. I can't speak to the Excelsior 184 site. Again, perhaps the applicant may be able to speak more to that. As I understand it, they've been negotiating the mitigation and preservation of those sites, and so they may be able to better speak to those items.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for staff this evening? All right, thank you, Ms. Patton.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant down. And our clerk can get you sworn in this evening.
And please raise your right hand as you're used to doing, and the appropriate response is I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give the commission is the truth, so help you God? And if you do not swear, do you so affirm?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Nick Abdis on behalf of Silver Springs LLC, the applicant for this tentative map extension. I've been sworn. So I can answer any of the questions you have, but I want to be mindful of the fact of what the request is before you. It's a time extension for a map, and this is kind of the challenge we had, I think, with the CPAC. Given this project was very controversial in 2018, we did receive a negative recommendation from the CPAC, but the Board of Supervisors ultimately approved the map and the related entitlements. But we were not relitigating kind of the nature and scope of the previous approval. It's pretty narrow, the request. I'm happy, Commissioner Wong, to kind of get into the particulars, the permitting particulars, but they're long and complicated, and it's one of these things, a circuitous route to the end result, which was the federal agencies, the Corps, the service, and the State Department of Fish and Wildlife concurring with the development application, allowing for the 48 units and the development footprint to move forward. So, is that satisfactory for now? Or
I guess I'm just being curious. Was curious about more information about exactly what Excelsior 184 would be, and as a preservation, what exactly does that mean, I guess?
So originally when the Silver Spring, I guess high-level explanations of when the original Silver Springs project was approved in the early 90s, Lot P was originally conceived as mitigation for those impacts. Later on in discussions with the Corps and the service, it was determined that the Excelsior 184 property was more appropriate mitigation, which opened up the potential for the Lot P property to be separately processed for land use entitlements. That's the short of it.
That's sufficient for me.
And is Excelsior 184 local?
Yeah, it's off Excelsior Road.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Avis this evening?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and open up public comment.
And there are no public comments in chambers or on the phone.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close public comment.
I would just remind the commission, if there are any new conditions with this extension, to have the applicant agree to those on the record, because otherwise you can't impose new conditions.
Sounds good. Yeah, it was included in the staff report, but Mr. Avis, can you come back down real quick and let us know if you're in agreement with all of the renumbered and reordered conditions of approval?
Yes, we are. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, council. We really need a form for them to sign as part of the process. Another form, just one more. All right. We are ready for deliberation or a motion.
I guess I'll start us off in that, this, like the project applicant representative has said, this was already previously approved back in 2018, and I can't speak for some of my fellow commissioners, but I was not on the commission in 2018. And, while I may not, without having all the facts in front of me of that particular approval, I don't know if I necessarily would have agreed with the decision of the Planning Commission at that time, but what it comes down to is it was approved. And so that's kind of how I see it. Like, while I maybe in this day, like if this project were before me today, I might have more questions about substituting Excelsior 184 for Lot P and whether it's appropriate, but that's not the question before us. And the question before us is whether or not we extend or we provide a time extension on this.
So is that a motion?
It can be.
Up to you.
Sure, I move staff recommendation.
All right.
I'll second and also add some of my thoughts, but not related to Commissioner Wong's comments, but more so on the long list of stipulated conditions that addresses the traffic concerns that my former CPAC colleagues have brought in the October meeting. I think that while you're correct, we're not litigating the project as it now stands, I think it's also important to understand that there are a lot of the transportation improvements that would not only help the community upon this project's success, but also provide additional infrastructure improvements on that neighborhood and that area. Some of them are easements, some of them are road widening, some of them are also floodplain prevention, which sometimes doesn't show up in this, a very long staff report, but it's there. And especially now that that area is also prone to flooding, it's not just traffic that this project can potentially improve, but also just sewage and drainage as well. So I'm happy to second the motion and support time extension as we see.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening? All right. Will you please call the roll?
And yes, Chair, we're going to switch it up a little bit since now the expectation is that commissioners and board members will be in chambers. So we're going to use the voting machine. So
Perfect.
I'm going to go ahead and enable it. Please vote. Unanimous vote.
All right. With that, item number 2 has been approved. And we'll move on to the Planning Director's report.
Good evening again, Jessica Brandt, and I do not have anything to report unless you have any questions for me. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to miscellaneous scheduling items.
And there are none from the clerk's office.
All right. And any general public comments this evening?
And there are none.
All right.
Thank you.
You sure there's no general public comments in the back? All right. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 5:57 p.m. Thank you all for being here. Have a great night.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.